Hi everyone. I know I literally just posted a book haul and I called it Final Book Haul and I talked in the book haul about how I was going to be doing any book hauls for a while, but I'm here with another book haul. I can explain. I actually filmed that like months and months ago, so I went like 2 months without buying books, which for me is pretty good to be honest. And then one day I was just casually looking at Book Outlet, which is a very dangerous thing to do, and I accidentally bought 20 books. And I have no explanation. I have no justification. I shouldn't be spending money. I can't even put them on my bookshelves, to be honest. My bookshelves are packed full. So I don't know why I did this to myself, especially because Christmas is coming up, so I'm going to be getting books for Christmas. But I did it, and there's no going back now, so I thought I'd share them with you. Just a little fun book haul video tinged with guilt. So let's get started. Actually, the first book I want to talk about is the only one that I didn't get from Book Outlet. I pre-ordered this off of Barnes & Noble like months ago, and I just finally got it. And that is White Nights by, oh God, I can't say this man's name. Fyodor Dostoevsky, I think. You can see it. It's cute. Oh, the lighting right now is kind of terrible, but it's a beautiful little cloth-bound edition. I bought this because all I know is that it has to do with like unrequited love. And that's the only reason I bought it. And I've heard that it's absolutely beautiful and a must read, so I wanted to have it. And I just kind of felt like getting destroyed, like emotionally. So I think that this will do that for me. Anyway, now let's get into the Book Outlet books. I have 2 boxes. Here's proof of a box. Oh my God, I can't even pick it up. Okay. I tried to pick it up and I dumped it all over the floor because I was trying to do it one-handed since I have my mic. So I'm not going to be picking the boxes up. But I'll start with the small box. You're just like gonna have to trust me. Okay, the first book that I picked off of the big mess on my floor is Murder on the Orient Express by Agatha Christie. This is a locked room mystery that happens on a train as it's going through a snowdrift. That's all I know. I've never read an Agatha Christie, which I know is kind of crazy, but I'm not really like a mystery thriller person. I'm just now starting to get into them a little bit more, so I thought, why not pick up one by fucking Agatha Christie? I mean, come on, it's iconic. And I saw this one at Book Outlet, and I recognized the name, so I wanted to pick it up. I'm actually pretty excited about this. I'm really hoping that I love her, because she's written so many books, and it'll be really fun to just, like, have a fun little mystery night where I read this and get all cozy, and I could read all of her books in one sitting, probably. So, because they're all pretty short. So, I'm excited about this. I really want to get to it soon. Next, we have Fruit of the Dead by Rachel Lyon. I don't know how to say it. This is like a Hades and Persephone retelling that takes place in the modern day, and it follows this girl who is like, she's like babysitting or something for this very wealthy man, and he makes her sign an NDA. So she tells her mother basically that she has like an internship for the summer, but that she can't give her any information, and then she just vanishes without a trace. And her mom freaks the fuck out and like tries to find her. I've heard a lot of praise about this one. I feel like everyone who reads it absolutely loves it, so I hope that I'm in that camp as well. Next, we have Birnam Wood by Eleanor Catton. This book, Author of the Luminaries. I have that book, don't I? Learning new things. Oh my God, I had no idea it was the same author. I've actually tried to read The Luminaries once, and I thought it was really boring in the beginning, couldn't get into it, but I still have kept it because I still want to read it someday. I'm talking so fast. Okay. Anyway, Birnam Wood. I think this was like on a list for some award or something, and that's how I heard about it, but I'm not sure which one. Essentially, there's like this landslide that closes off a pass in New Zealand, and this creates an opportunity for Birnam Wood, which is a guerrilla gardening collective that plants crops wherever no one will notice. If they can occupy the farm, they might finally break good and amass enough resources to set themselves up. If they can occupy the farm, they might finally break good and amass enough resources to set themselves up for the long term. But an American billionaire has purchased the farm, so they're kind of going like toe-to-toe with him. And the billionaire is kind of like enchanted by the Birnam Woods founder, Mira, and they kind of realize that they have some political enemies in common, so they start to work with one another, I believe. So, like I said, I saw this on a list of some best book award thing. And it sounded really interesting, and I feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about this, and the more I read the synopsis, the more interested I am. And it says it's a thriller, so that's fun. I'm in my thriller era, okay? I'm trying it out. I'm having some fun. And that brings us to our next book, The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I recently read my first Riley Sager, which was the only one left, and I absolutely really loved it. So when I saw this on Book Outlet, I had to pick it up because I want to read more by him. So this book essentially follows, let me see if I can remember, because I read the synopsis once. But from what I remember, it follows like a woman who watches her neighbors across the lake in a pair of binoculars. And then one day she actually befriends them. But then one day the wife goes missing and she suspects that the husband did it. So she tries to kind of like solve the missing wife mystery by herself. I don't know. It doesn't sound as interesting to me as The Only One Left did. But I do want to read some more Riley Sager. So I had to pick it up. I had to. It was out of my hands. And it's a nice little hardcover too. And then the last book from the small box is The Hacienda by Isabel Cañas. I think when the squiggles over the end, it makes kind of a Y sound afterwards. But I don't speak Spanish, so I'm really, really sorry. This book takes place in Mexico during the revolution, I believe. During the overthrow of the Mexican government. Okay, so essentially during the overthrow of the Mexican government, this woman's father was executed and her home was destroyed, and then this wealthy man proposes to her, so she marries him just to get like the security of wealth, but she doesn't actually love him, and his home ends up not being the sanctuary that she hopes it would be. And it's kind of like, it seems kind of like a haunted house kind of thing, or like haunted estate. It just seems spooky and fun, and I've heard a lot about this author as well, and I've heard this book mentioned several times, so I really want to pick it up. And now we have the big box, which I will not attempt to pick up because I will definitely spill that one everywhere. So let's get started. First book I'm seeing is What Feasts at Night by T. Kingfisher. This is the sequel to What Moves the Dead. That was the first book. And that is a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. And I have not read that yet, but it is on my shelf. So when I saw the sequel on Book Outlet for like $5, I convinced myself that I had to pick it up because if I were to buy it another time, it would be like $20. So it just makes financial sense. I'm saving money here. And then we have another sequel, which also saves money, and that is Sunbringer by Hannah Kaner. This is the sequel to Godkiller. From what I understand, Godkiller is like a high fantasy where gods roam the earth, or at least they used to, and someone killed them. I don't know much about it. I'm just going off the title. I remember nothing about what that book is about, actually. That's because I haven't read it. I've only read the synopsis a couple times. But again, I want to read that one. I'm thinking I'm going to like it, so I want to have the sequel on hand and ready. Then we have a nonfiction, and that is Dark Archives, a librarian's investigation to the science and history of books bound in human skin by Megan Rosenblum. I don't know. It's like a morbidly interesting kind of book, and which is like something that I absolutely love. I actually think I want to make a video of like morbidly interesting nonfiction, so that's something you think you'd be into, let me know, because I could totally do that. But yeah, this book is what it says it is. It's about books bound in human skin. And I love books, and I love creepy, unsettling things, so I had to pick this up. I haven't heard too many people talk about it, but the people I have heard talk about it have really loved it. Next is a book I've heard so much about, and that is The Ministry of Time by Colleen Bradley. And for as much as I've heard about, you'd think that I'd be able to describe it well, but I definitely can't, is the thing. I know that it follows, like, it takes place in the future, and it follows this British government office called the Ministry of Time, and they've brought people back from the past, like they've time traveled to the future, and these are people that would have died otherwise, and they're kind of like experimenting, and that's all I really understand. But I've heard so much praise for this book. Like, I was actually kind of shocked to find it on Book Outlet because I thought it was very, very popular, so I wouldn't expect it to be on Book Outlet. But just given all the hype I've heard about it, it really made me want to pick it up myself and see what I think. Then we have a novel that I've hyped up a lot in my mind, and that is Piglet by Lottie Hazel. This book follows, let's see if I can remember. It follows a woman who's about to get married when she finds out some secret about her to-be husband, her fiance. And she has some issues about eating food, or like issues with her relationship with food, I mean. And that's all I know. But like, look at this gorgeous cover. Is that not beautiful? I love a good painting on the cover. This one I've heard mixed reviews about, but I wanna see what I think. Next is a book I know absolutely nothing about, but I've seen in the bookstore a couple times. I wanted to pick it up, and then I also saw it on the New York Times 100 best books of the what century are we in? 20 of the century that we're in. I can't remember if we're in the 21st or the 22nd. It has to be the 21st century, right? I can't remember. Don't ask me to do anything. I've been working 40-hour weeks and studying 40 hours on top of that. My brain is fried, so I have an excuse for anything. Anyway, the book is 2666 by Roberto Bolaño. I have no idea what this is about, and the back doesn't really tell me much either. It talks about 3 academics that are on the trail of a reclusive German author, a New York reporter on his first Mexican assignment, a widowed philosopher, a police detective, and live with an elusive older woman. These are among the searchers drawn to the border city of Santa Teresa, where over the course of a decade, hundreds of women have disappeared. That's all the back says, so it doesn't give you much information. Books and Lala read this, I think, and she was talking about how the title makes no sense in the book, and it's just like a reference to this author's like grander works or something. So that's exciting. I think that's really cool. I think it's funny, to be honest. So I definitely want to pick this one up. It just sounds like it's gonna be like this big like saga, like an epic journey kind of a thing. I don't know. I just think I'm gonna be really into it, to be honest. I have no idea why. I'm just going off of vibes. Sorry. Then we have Pew by Catherine Lacey. I picked this book up because I absolutely loved the autobiography of X. I just thought, is it no, it's just a biography, right? Yeah, it's just a biography of X. I don't know where the auto part came in, because she's definitely not telling it herself. Anyway, I absolutely loved Biography of X. I thought it was just a brilliant, perfect book, and it made me want to pick up every single thing by this author. So when I saw this on Book Outlet, I could not resist. So again, this is called Pew, and this sounds like a really, really weird book. It takes place in a small town in the American South, and it follows this church congregation that arrives for a service and finds someone sleeping on a pew. The person is genderless and racially ambiguous and refuses to speak. So a family takes in the stranger and names them Pew, and the book kind of follows the stranger and the effects that the stranger has on this small community. I don't know, it just sounds so weird, but I'm so into it. I think I'm gonna love it. Just based off of the Biography of X, I think I'm gonna love it, because I love that book so much. Then we have a horror classic, which is The Exorcist by William Peter Blatty. I don't know why I did that. This is the most terrifying novel ever written, according to The Top. So if you don't know what The Exorcist is about, it's essentially about like demonic possession of a little girl. I saw the movie when I was like 15 or something with my dad, and I really liked the movie. I've since talked about the movie more recently with my friends, and we've like talked about watching it again because it just is such a classic. But I've never read the book. And he actually wrote this before the movie came out, and then he wrote the screenplay. So I think this is going to be very similar to the movie, but the back is saying it's an experience you'll never forget. So let's hope that's true. I love, like, ever since I've read Rosemary's Baby, and I loved it, I've wanted to read more, like, classic horror books. So I'm really hoping that this hits the mark for me. Next, we've got another horror book, How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Hendrix. This book follows a main character, as all books do. What is her name? Louise. So essentially Louise finds out that her parents have died, and she returns home to like deal with their house and everything that you have to deal with after your parents die. But she dreads going home because she hates her brother, and her brother is also there. And it says she's essentially going home so she can like get the house ready to be sold. And it says, but some houses don't want to be sold, and Louise and Mark's home has other plans for both of them. I love a haunted house story. I'm saying that because I read The Haunting of Hill House recently, and I was obsessed with it. And ever since then, I've wanted to read more haunted house stories. So obviously I had to pick this one up. I really like the books I've read by Grady Hendrix before. I've read the one about the book club and the vampire, the Southern Book Club's Guide to Flying Vampires, I think it's called. I don't know where it is on my bookshelf. And then I read The Final Girls. I liked both of those. I like the vampire one the most. But I've heard good things about this. I've heard so many good things about this author, and I've really liked him in the past, so I had to pick it up. I had to. The next book I got is Looking Glass Sound by Katrina Ward. I don't know much about this. I know that it's a thriller / horror. It follows a writer who has begun to write the last book he will ever write. But the more he writes, the less he trusts himself and his memory, and he starts to see things that can't be real. And he begins to feel that not only will this be his last book, but the last thing he ever does. So again, I don't know much about it. I'm trying not to read much of the synopsis, because if it's a thriller, I think I want to go into it more blindly. But I've seen this book in a lot of places. And that's to say that, like, I haven't necessarily seen people reviewing it, but I've seen people, like, hauling it and talking about it. And I don't know. I wanted to pick it up. I just, like, as I get further along in a book haul, the more I'm like, I don't know how to describe my choices to you. I just, like, added it to the cart. And that's what it is. Speaking of oh my God, speaking of what? What am I talking about? Speaking of Hill House, I also picked up A Haunting on the Hill by Elizabeth Hand. This is a book that has been approved by Shirley Jackson's estate to actually take place in Hill House. So essentially it's following, if I can ever open this book. So essentially it's following a struggling playwright who's received a grant to write her next play, and she's hoping this will be her big break. All she needs is time and space to bring her vision to life, and then she stumbles upon Hill House, and she's instantly enamored with it. And that's all I want to know. I'm so excited to return to Hill House. I know that this is like another author's work, so I might not really enjoy it. Like, I like Shirley Jackson's work. But I just think it's fun. I think it's fun to return to this setting, and I really want to see how she plays on it, you know? Like, I love that book so much. I'm totally here for, like, a fan tribute to it. Then we have Mother Doll by Katya Pankina. I'm sorry. I just want to say I'm sorry. I can't pronounce any author's names ever. This book follows Xenia, who's adrift in Los Angeles, pregnant with a baby her husband doesn't want, and her grandmother, her favorite person in the world, is dying on the opposite coast. Then she gets a strange call from a psychic with a message from her great-grandmother, Irina, who is desperate to tell her story to Xenia. I don't know. That just sounds so cool to me. I really think I'm going to love it. I also just loved the cover, which I think is the main reason I was attracted to it in the first place. But I really love the idea of, like, someone from your family that's dead using a psychic to communicate with you and, like, tell their story. And I also am interested in the fact, this sounds, like, morbid, I'm also interested in the fact that her grandmother's dying, because recently my grandmother died and she was also my favorite person in the whole world. So I'm hoping that I can, like, ever since my grandma died, I've wanted to read a book about grief that, like, will make me feel connected to the book, and I haven't quite found that. Like, I picked up Joan Didion's The Year of Magical Thinking, but she was just writes in, like, a very distant way. It doesn't feel, like, very emotional, and I want something very emotional to, like, feel with, if that makes sense. So I'm kind of hoping that this will touch on that a little bit. I'm hoping. We'll see. Then we have what sounds like a very, very weird book, and that is Beautyland by Marie Helen Bertino. I had to twist it to read the name. So this one I can't really explain it to you without reading, so I'm so sorry. I'm going to read a little bit. At the moment when Voyager 1 is launched into space, carrying its famous golden record, a baby of unusual perception is born to a single mother in Philadelphia. Adina Giorno is tiny and jaundiced, but she reaches for warmth and light. As a child, she recognizes that she is different. She possesses knowledge of a faraway planet. Come on! The arrival of a fax machine enables her to contact her extraterrestrial relatives, beings who have sent her to report on the oddities of Earthlings. Come on! That sounds so weird. I love it. Then we have a book I bought mainly for the title and cover, and that is Poor Dear. That is Poor Dear by Claire Oshetsky, something like that. So essentially this follows a girl whose first memories of her best friend dying. Her mother and, like, everyone around her insists that she had nothing to do with it, but she's still left with these memories that kind of haunt her. And then enter Poor Dear, a strange and formidable creature who winds her way uninvited into Margaret's made-up tales. Poor Dear will not rest until Margaret faces the truth about her past and atones for her role in her best friend's death. I don't know. I don't know what that is. I don't know what it's about, but it sounds really interesting and it's really, really cute. So I had to pick it up. I didn't have to, but I did. And this is the moment. We have come to the very last book in this book haul. And that is the one and the only The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. This is like an epic family saga. It follows a family that's in trouble. The father's car business is going under. The mother is selling off jewelry on eBay. Teenage daughter is determined to binge drink her way through the final exams. And their 12-year-old son is on the brink of running away. So it follows like each member of this family and traces this all back to like a bee sting that happened. I'm giving a terrible, terrible description. But this book was nominated for the Booker. It was nominated for some prize. And I've heard so much hype. I feel like everyone who reads this book falls in love with it. And I want to fall in love with it too. It is a beefy book, but that almost makes me more excited to just kind of like fall into it and be completely like wrapped up in these characters and this world. So that's that. I'm so excited about this one if you can't tell. So there you go. Those are the 21 books I've bought recently. And now I had to take a thumbnail and I just threw them all on my bed in a very disorganized manner. So I'm going to pick those all up. That's great. Let me know if you've read any of these books down below and what you thought. Let me know what books you've hauled recently. Just leave a comment and I'll respond. I will see you later with another video. Goodbye. Thank you for watching.